Rambi Rumble brings us back into the hives. I wish I could remember playing this level for the first time, because the home stretch throws a curveball at the player that we haven't seen before or since. But even before the climactic end to the level, Rambi Rumble brings its A game. Or dare I say it, B game? No, A game, that was stupid. It's a tense climb up and through the labyrinthine hive, where you're attacked from all sides as you push on to the end of the fourth world. This is part 25 of Overthinking Donkey Kong Country 2. I really like how Crazy Kremland is almost symmetrical. Hive levels on the edges, brambles in the middle, with roller coaster rides in between. Mudhole Marsh doesn't count. Rambi Rumble splits up nicely into two halves. The first sees the Kongs climbing to the top of the hive. Once again, we start on the right hand side and move left, though this level's a little more straightforward than, say, Bramble Scramble. There's really only one spot where it folds into itself, and for the most part you're either moving up or diagonally.
Diagonally.
Shortly after the halfway point, there's a cave, where you find a Rambi barrel. The rest of the level is spent as Rambi, and unfolds almost like a mirror of the first half. As Rambi, you progress across and down, all the way back to the bottom of the hive, taking out anyone that stands in your way. It's a real catharsis after the ordeal of Crazy Kremland, and a great way to reward the player for making it this far. I haven't talked about the big picture dynamics as much in this series as I did in Overthinking DKC, and that's my bad. While the game has kept things dynamic and fun, it rarely throws the player an easy one like Winky's Walkway to settle their nerves and get their confidence up. There are levels like Rattle Battle, where the game essentially becomes the Ratley Show for a while, and it's a nice lighthearted break from the Death March, but difficulty wise, it doesn't really change. This half of the level's much the same. It's not particularly difficult, but it's not so easy as to be a relaxing playthrough. It is a really fun way to see off Crazy Kremland though. That said, it's short-lived. The focal point of the level is the introduction of King Zing, which happens at roughly the midpoint of the Rambi segment, and completely turns the gameplay on its head. Instead of a fairly standard end to a fairly normal level, you're now running for your life from the boss of the world. There was no hint at all that King Zing was going to show up, so it's such a curveball when he does. It's the first and only time a boss shows up in a normal level, and I think that's so cool. Talking about dynamics again, this is an amazing build up before the final boss. You barely escape his clutches with your life, and soon after, you've got to step right back into the hive to confront him. If you do Rambi's charge move right before the end, you reach the final bonus area, and one that feels like a way to blow off some steam after the chase scene. In terms of narrative, I don't really know what to make of this level, so I'm not going to get too out there with it. I get the impression that the King Zing appearance was spontaneous, like when Butch drives into Marcellus in Pulp Fiction. I could be wrong though, as the level design for the Rambi section doesn't not look like an ambush. It's got choke points, zingers blocking the way, maybe the whole level they were here, lying in wait for the Kongs. There's a little more I could say about this level, like how the King Zing section has unique music that doesn't appear anywhere else in the game, or how there are as many zingers in the King Zing section as there are in the first half of the level, and how they're creatively used as roadblocks and bridges you have to navigate under pressure. I also feel like I could talk more about the visuals here, the lava in their hexagonal holes, or the zingers observing the chaos. It's an interesting looking level to say the least. At any rate, I'm mostly happy with how this episode turned out, and I'm doing my best to trim the fat off my scripts and keep them as high a quality as possible. King Zing's next, then on to Gloomy Gulch.